Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the TCLAS High Quality After School Overview webinar. We'll be talking through High Quality After School Decision 11 for TCLAS. Today, quick introductions. My name is Brian Dorn. I'm the Director of Expanded Learning Models here at TEA. We'll also be hearing from three of my colleagues here today. First is Gloria Matthews, the High Quality Instructional Materials Integration Manager. Second is Andrew Hodge, Director of Innovative Instructional Models. And then additionally, we'll be hearing from Christine McCormick, statewide coordinator of 21st Century Community Learning Centers and Expanded Learning Opportunities here at TEA. We'll be talking through four key components of TCLAS High Quality After School. First, we'll do a high-level overview of how High Quality After School and TCLAS interact. We'll jump into the programming and actual supports available for TCLAS High Quality After School. We'll then go into eligibility, prioritization, and assurances, and close out with next steps. Throughout this webinar, please feel free to ask questions and put them in the Q&A box in Zoom. We do ask that you use the Q&A box as opposed to chat for questions for easier monitoring. Additionally, this recording and these slides will be posted on tea.texas.gov/TCLAS shortly after this webinar concludes. So let's jump in. TCLAS High Quality After School. If you are unfamiliar with the acronym TCLAS, TCLAS stands for Texas COVID Learning Acceleration Supports. And this is a comprehensive grant application. The first iteration of this was an application that was open in July and August and focuses on 5 key pillars of learning acceleration supports. First is strategic planning. We have instructional materials, teacher pipelines, more time, and innovative school models. So through these 5 pillars, we provided a number of different supports for districts through the TCLAS grant application for the first iteration. That ranged from Decision 1, LEA Accelerated Learning Strategic Planning, all the way to Decision 10, New School Models. So 10 different decision points for LEAs, for districts and charters to be able to apply to and be awarded funds for. And through these, they are spread out across the 5 pillars that I was mentioning. For this decision, we are running a separate grant application from the first TCLAS application. And this is for one more decision point, Decision 11, High Quality After School. So 11 decision points now, and this is a distinct application, although still related to and adjacent to the other decision points in TCLAS. So why after school for learning acceleration? The TCLAS High Quality After School supports applicants in designing and implementing after school programs that accelerate learning. We're looking at 4 key components for our definition of high quality after school. First is providing a safe and healthy environment after the school day for all students at no cost to ensure full access. The second is enabling access to adults trained to build both academic and non-academic skills within the context of their local communities. Third is including themes and activities based in student needs that are both academic and enriching in nature. And then finally, delivering targeted academic support that can meet the requirements of HB 4545. And that is aligned with individual student needs. It's aligned with high quality curriculum and instruction, and aligned with the regular school day. So these 4 components are really at the highest level what we're talking about when we're saying high quality after school. A double click here into HB 4545. Many of you on the call are likely very familiar with this already, but HB 4545 establishes new requirements for districts and charters for accelerated learning. And that's specifically for students that don't pass STAR in grades 3, 5, or 8 in math and reading. And so this adds a requirement of accelerated instruction over the course of 30 hours for the school year for groups of no more than 3 students. So 1 to 3 student or teacher to student ratio. That accelerated instruction may not require that a student miss recess, foundational curriculum, or enrichment curriculum. And so TCLAS High Quality After School will be prioritizing programs that are planning to incorporate a high impact tutoring model. This is a model that goes above and beyond HB 4545 requirements And the goal is to support leaders in implementing the new 45-45 requirements in addition to this high impact tutoring model. We'll cover that more in a bit here. So this is kind of how high quality after school is positioned within TCLAS overall. And I'd love to pass it off to my colleague Gloria, who's going to talk more about the programming that high quality after school will involve and the available supports through this grant program.
Thanks, Brian. So Brian talked a little bit about why we're focusing on high quality after school. I'm going to talk a little bit about how and what that looks like. So there's a lot of research out there about what makes a high quality after school program. And we've used that research to sort of create the cornerstones of what high quality after school looks like through the lens of this grant. So of course, applicants are required to adhere to all of the guidelines, but these are sort of the high leverage ones that we wanted to point out. So a great high quality after school program runs 4 days a week for 3 hours a day. It has a small staff to student ratio of 1:15 with an even smaller ratio for high impact tutoring, which I'll talk about more in a moment. There's a full-time staff member designated to oversee the whole project. It has academics and enrichment both running together. So this is sort of the timeline and what the high quality after school program will look like. So you can see that in the spring of this year, there are sort of 2 ways that that programs can take it. We know there are going to be some people who are standing up a totally new after school program, and they may need this spring to create some planning, make sure that they have all the pieces in place to make sure that they run a high quality program. But there are other people who are well versed in running an after school program, and it might make sense for those folks to hit the ground running and start implementing a high impact tutoring program or start implementing high quality instructional materials right from the get-go. So this spring period offers folks the opportunity to do either of those things. The first full year of implementation then starts in the next school year, and there are different requirements that programs are required to meet along the way, and TEA is positioned to help folks meet those requirements, make sure that they get the training required. So we're sort of with you every step of the way. So the overview of supports, high quality after school has sort of 3 major decision points. We're focused on personnel, we're focused on technical assistance, and we're focused on instructional supports. So each of these 3 decision points is an option for folks to take in funding. There are no prerequisites. So if it makes sense for an after school program to only choose 11B and get funding for technical assistance, that's an option. Or maybe there are folks who want to take the whole suite, do 11A, B, and C. And we'll talk sort of about how the pieces fit together. So I'm going to start by talking about 11A, which is about personnel for high quality after school. So this is to support the personnel who's going to be leading the program. So this could look a number of ways for different after school programs. It might make sense to have a project lead who oversees the whole program. It might make sense to have someone who's at the site level or the school level running that certain after school program. The main focus here is that we think leadership in after school is really important. And so focusing in whatever way makes sense for your after school program on having strong leadership that is present to create that strategic plan, make revisions and reflections based on the running of the program. And so 11A is all about making sure that that leadership is there and available to run a strong after school program. And you can see the available funds for that here. The next part is technical assistance, which is under decision 11B. And technical assistance, even when you have a great leader running your after school program, we know that a lot comes up in the running of the process. So 11B is to support what happens during the program run. So making sure that people have access to technical assistance and support to make sure that things are running smoothly in the duration of the program. As you're going through that strategic plan and doing that revision, that you have all the supports that you need in place. And this is really a pretty flexible support for after school programs to use to make sure that they are getting exactly what they need to have support along the way. And you can see those funds there, yeah. So 11C is about instructional supports for after school. So this can look a couple of different ways. In 11C, there is an option A, for folks who are interested in implementing high impact tutoring. And there is an option B for folks who are not interested in high impact tutoring, but do want to have access to those high quality instructional materials to make sure that they're meeting the learning acceleration needs of their students, which, as we know, is so important in this school year for all of us. So I'm going to talk about these separately. I'm going to talk first a little bit about option A. So we'll dive into option A. Yeah. Okay, so option A is all about this high impact tutoring program. And as Brian said before, this high impact tutoring program is built to meet the needs of HB 4545, but it sort of goes above and beyond that. It's built on these research-based principles about what we know creates a great tutoring program and what we know creates learning acceleration for students. So these are some of the cornerstones based in research on what a high impact tutoring program is. It's at least 30-minute sessions 3 times a week. It has that really small group individualized support of a 1-to-3 staff to student ratio max. It is built with high quality instructional materials aligned to the standards, but also aligned to what a student is experiencing during the school day. And it has well-trained, consistent tutors to make sure that students' learning is built on relationships with that person. And it is data-driven, of course. It's built on what the students' strengths are and what their needs are as they are going into this learning acceleration process. So that is option A, and these are the supports that are available for it. The first piece of the support is stipends for tutors, teachers, or other educators. This is another thing that could look different for different after-school programs. For some, it might be hiring outside tutors. Others, it might be using these stipends to pay teachers who are staying on after the school day. This is flexible, but meant to be spent on the folks who are going to be spending time with the students in the tutoring setting. And then the second part of the support is paid licenses for those high impact tutoring products. So the TEA tutoring team has identified 3 products that are high quality instructional materials used in that super small high impact tutoring setting. Those products are Zern, BookNook, and Amplify M-Class Intervention that have been identified as great supports for a high impact tutoring program. And you can see the supports there. So option B, as I said, is about schools that are interested in having those high quality instructional materials, but may not have the ability or the need to do that in a super small tutoring setting. So this is built on using a set of high quality instructional materials in a setting that is perhaps bigger, that meets that 1-to-15 ratio, but isn't a high impact tutoring model. So this is a list of products that have been identified as high quality instructional materials that could be used in an after school setting as a supplement to what students are learning during the school day, and hopefully creating connections between school day learning and after school learning. You'll see on this list that there are, that the ones that were in the high impact tutoring model are also here to be used in a different way with a larger group. And here are the supports for that. So of course that is including the licenses for high quality instructional materials that were in that list there, but it also includes professional learning for those high quality instructional materials. So making sure that tutors feel well equipped and well versed in the materials allows them to deliver the best learning possible to students, and we know that. And so part of this is also to fund that professional learning to make sure students are as well prepared as possible. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Andrew, who's going to talk a little bit about eligibility, prioritization, and the assurances.
Thanks so much, Gloria. And you got a lot of really great questions coming in the Q&A. I think a lot of the questions that are out there right now will be answered in the next few slides. We're also going to pause here in a minute to answer some of those questions before we turn over to the actual application to give you all an overview. So just want to walk through the eligibility, prioritization, and assurances that are involved with TCLAS high quality after school. So there's 2 possible scenarios for eligible applicants for this set of supports. One is with the LEAs as a lead applicant. In this scenario, the funding would be awarded to the LEA. The LEA is responsible for meeting all the assurances. But in this scenario, we know there are a lot of partnership agreements out there and partnership opportunities that have shown a lot of success across the state. In this scenario, if the LEAs want to apply as the lead applicant, but are being supported by a partner, whether that's a nonprofit, an ESC, a community organization. That's a scenario that can apply to LEAs applying as the lead applicant. The other scenario is that a third party applies as the lead applicant. This would be something like a nonprofit, an ESC, and they would then be the ones receiving the funds and responsible for meeting the application assurances. For the sake of TCLAS, we are prioritizing LEAs that are applying to this, to TCLAS, to the high quality after school program, for the sake of sustainability within the district in the long term. And so the LEAs applying will get priority here, but that does still mean that there are opportunities for third parties to apply. Speaking of prioritization, and this is listed in the guidance document, just want to walk through this. So for those of y'all that were a part of the other TCLAS process, you'll remember that this is not a kind of an explanatory narrative driven process. This is essentially, are you interested in these supports? Let us know that you're interested in it, and then we'll essentially prioritize the awards based on the pre-stated prioritization rules. And then we just award kind of down according to that prioritization. So with tier 1, as I mentioned previously, LEA applicants will be prioritized. The tier 1, though, is folks that are agreeing to use approved high quality instructional materials within their tutoring program. This has 2 scenarios. First is actually using after school to include a high impact tutoring model within after school. A lot of really good questions in the chat. Wait, I don't understand the 3 hours that we're requiring for after school, which research says is strong for after school, leads to student outcomes, and then the 30-minute requirement for high impact tutoring. The after school requirements are broader than that. That's not saying that a student is going to be engaged in academic content for all 3 of those hours. That's saying that at least 30 minutes of that has to be included in the high impact tutoring model, but the other 2.5 hours could be spent doing different things. So those rules are kind of guided by the assurances that are listed here as well. So again, folks that are interested in implementing a high impact tutoring model within after school are the folks that are going to be prioritized with this award, followed by LEA applicants that are maybe not interested in implementing a high impact tutoring model. So really that's that ratio, the 1-to-3 ratio, but are interested in using the approved high quality instructional materials, supplemental products that we've listed out that Gloria just showed on her slide. Those are the 2 groups that are going to be a part of tier 1 in that prioritization. Also want to make a note about tutoring versus after school. We know that there's a lot of overlap there with decision 6. So for folks that remember, that was Texas Tutoring Supports in after school. We, as a part of TCLAS high quality after school, are prioritizing folks that did not receive decision 6 awards, although folks that did receive those awards are still eligible, but the priority is to go to those folks to make sure that anybody interested in implementing a high quality or a high impact tutoring program in after school is able to do so. The next tier is essentially nonprofits and ESC applicants that are interested in doing the same thing. So using either that high impact tutoring model within their after school program or using a set of high quality instructional materials that is paid for and approved for that model. And then finally, the tier 3 and tier 4 are relative to folks that are saying, you know what, we want to, we're interested in these supports, the personnel costs and technical assistance perhaps, but we're not willing to commit to the high quality instructional materials use, which is okay. It's not going to fit for everybody out there. There's a lot of folks that have really outstanding after school curriculum that they're using, and that's great. And so we want to make sure that across the board that is the case, and are seeking to prioritize folks that are interested in that high impact tutoring model and or using the high quality instructional materials. I want to draw special note to the assurances with this, through TCLAS and all the, and specifically TCLAS high quality after school. The way that the requirements are listed out for the program is through the assurances. This is on page 7 and beyond in the overview document that we'll walk through here in a second. It's available on ta.texas.gov/TCLAS. These assurances essentially list out everything that folks are committing to do as recipients of this award. There's a lot of assurances here because there's a lot that goes into providing an outstanding educational experience for students after school. And so those are listed again in the overview document. A few that I want to call out that I think are extra important just to highlight in our time together today is one, we know that there's got to be somebody that's overall leading the grant or the after school program. And so we want to make sure that there's that point person at the district that's in charge, essentially the person that can communicate with our team to make sure that all of kind of the quality implementation is happening. We also, one of the assurances is to schedule a program in which students attend at least 4 days a week for 3 hours per day for a minimum of 90 days per year. So again, this is an instance where high quality after school goes above and beyond the high impact tutoring requirements to actually build in a program that that has kids there for at least 3 hours a day, 4 days a week as well. One thing I want to call out there, that's not straight academic time. That's not straight, let's just extend class periods. Let's do remediation. Let's do high impact tutoring. That includes things like enrichment activities. That includes things like snack time. That includes things like peer mentoring, the things that also make after school an incredible experience for kids. And so that's, and we have a handful of sample schedules that we can post for folks to kind of get a sense of what that looks like. But that's kind of the rationale for that requirement. There is a minimum program staff to student ratio that is required through high quality after school of 1 to 15. This is, again, different than high impact tutoring. In a high impact tutoring model, it's 1 to 3 for the time that that tutor is engaging with the students. So the way that I would think about operating this is you probably have your high quality after school program. You have your full after school program that is potentially being led by one person that has roughly 15 students that are in the program. And then there's also another tutor that is, if you are using this high impact tutoring model, there's a tutor that's essentially doing a pull-out model with those, with 3 students at a time, potentially over the course of the entire day, right? So that's how I would kind of think about the personnel here. And that's what the personnel costs and the stipends that are included within this award intended to benefit. There's also a strategic plan that we're asking folks to submit. This is something that our team will work with your team and the technical assistance folks to submit. These are essentially ensuring that we can provide our resources to support folks in designing and developing all the things that need to be true in an after school program. So do you have your staffing right? Is there, have we played out the master schedule? Are we defining the goals? Are we engaging the right stakeholders over the course of this time? And that's something that our team is able to provide additional support with. And then finally, another project lead related assurance that we'll call out is just attending required convenings, meetings, trainings, kind of development opportunities that are provided with this opportunity. So in addition to these kind of more general assurances for folks that are looking at 11C option A and B and interested in selecting that and choosing that, there's also an assurance that we wanted, or a handful of assurances that are specific to that implementation. One that I just want to call out and just be explicit on is that folks, like students should be like progressing on the chosen curriculum that y'all have. I think that's a very broad statement that I think is generally known by folks that are on this call, right? And so we just want to make sure that we're able to support folks in actually at the end of the day, making sure that students are progressing along the curriculum or the supplemental curriculum that folks have chosen, and getting up and running with that as quickly as possible, just to make sure that we're really catching up that student learning as soon as possible for kids. So with that, I want to transition to a few FAQs, and I've seen a few of these come through on the chat. I do actually want to, at this time, just again, go back to this requirement because we're seeing a lot of questions about the 4-day, 3-hour, 90-day-a-week requirement. Keep in mind, this requirement is for the after-school program as a whole. Districts and whoever's implementing the program should make every effort to ensure that students are there for all that time, right? And so this is 4 hours a week the program should be offered, 3 hours a day that the program should be open. and then 90 days over the course of the year. And then folks should make every effort to ensure that all students enrolled in the program are there for that entire time. And that, yes, and that is an assurance that we've listed within this opportunity. A few other FAQs that have come across. If we didn't apply to the original TCLAS application, can we apply? Yep, it's completely separate. This is something that anybody that's interested in applying to this, you have the opportunity to apply. Keep in mind what I mentioned earlier about the prioritization of folks that didn't receive the Decision 6 Texas Tutoring Supports award. Speaking of, another question that we're getting a lot of is, what is the difference between tutoring and after school? After school is this umbrella of this 3-hour chunk of time that we're able to serve our students after school hours. As a side note there, it is required from the federal ESSER requirements that these funds be spent after school. So we've seen a few folks ask, can I do this in summer? Can I do it before school? From their guidance, we have to follow it. This has to be after school. So if you think about a full after school program, again, there's a lot of stuff that you could do in an after school program. When I think about the after school programs that were at the school that I taught at, it's students that are engaged in maybe some project-based learning that's aligned with regular school day. Some students that are working directly with mentors to just talk and connect. There's also students that are maybe getting homework help. Maybe there's students who are actually engaging with content on an online curriculum that's developed for supplemental instruction. These are all the things that could be happening in an after-school program, let alone the food services, right, as well. Within that, you can choose to have a high-impact tutoring model, right? So this would be a model that's inserted as an academic component for reading or math within the school, within that after-school program 3-hour time slot. So I think after school, big high impact tutoring is an academic component of high quality after school. The questions around, can we only apply for tutoring? Can we just do tutoring? This is about high quality after school. So again, this is about that umbrella. This is about the program. And if folks want to implement a high impact tutoring model within an after school program, those are the folks that we'll prioritize with this award. There's a lot of folks that have reached out and asked about, hey, we have an after school program going within our district. And there's a lot of folks that are running the 21st century programs, our Texas programs within their districts as well. Should we hire a new FTE with these funds if we already have somebody running them? No, if you already have an after school program that's running within your district or your nonprofit, this is why we've been a little bit more broad on personnel funds. So think about how to use these funds in order to supplement that work that is already happening. So it's not required to go to that district lead for after school. It is required to go to personnel funds. We also see some questions about, can we use this to supplement transportation? Can we use this to supplement the folks that are leading the work at the campuses? The answer is yes to that. There's personnel funds that should go to that after school program. But it doesn't have to just be to that district lead person. And then the last one we just spoke about kind of other out of school times options that are not an option for this grant. We're getting a ton of really excellent questions, and please keep them coming. We are working on an FAQ document that we'll publish to the ta.texas.gov/TCLAS website within the coming days. I would look for it early next week, so that we can read and respond to all the questions that we're getting today. But that'll be available for folks next week to look through. As well as the inevitable questions that y'all are gonna ask, the great questions that this team may not have the answer to, but we'll turn around and go figure that out from the other folks. Jenny, I see the question, did you say transportation can be included? Personnel costs can be included from 11A. So if it's personnel costs that are related to transportation, that is an option for folks. I also want to give a note about after-school programs. After-school programs are a great opportunity to make sure that we're serving all students, especially the ones that need it the most. And so I want to just be very explicit about serving students from special populations in after school. Districts and recipients here need to make every effort to ensure that we're including every single student, that you're including students with special needs, and you from the laws that you see here, just cannot exclude folks from joining the program based on their needs. And then also that you're ensuring that they get equal services as their peers in these programs. So these requirements, these federal requirements and some state requirements here still apply to after school. We just want to be explicit that this is intended to serve all students, and we'll also include these in the FAQ document as well. So with that, I want to transition to next steps. We'll walk through where the application is, and then we'll pop back out and answer more questions. I'm going to look at the chat real quick, just see if there are some questions that we can answer. So I do see more questions around just the timing of after school. Again, the requirements are that 3-hour program and added to the end of the school day. I think there's some questions specific to individual campus calendars that we can't really answer or make a decision on, but it is a 3-hour after school for the school day. There's a question about, I think, a school that runs a pretty big after school program and thinking about all the staff members that we need to add. Will this grant cover all the staff required to run the after school program? The funds that are available through the award can go to giving stipends to all the folks, assuming it's a high impact tutoring program. The funds can go to supporting all those folks. Keep in mind, there's 2 options for personnel costs here. One is through the first option, 11A. The other one is through 11C, option A, which is the high impact tutoring model. So if I'm thinking about a big after school program that I would need to support a lot of folks getting stipends with, I would be using that high impact tutoring model. And then you are eligible to receive the stipends for those folks. All right. I am actually going to share my screen right now, and I'm just going to walk through the application where it is. As you could see from the slide that Brian had up a second ago, your first steps are to review the application resources and apply to TCLAS. So can I get a thumbs up that y'all can see my slides now, or the screen now? Great, thanks. So this is the website, the TCLAS website. If you want to find it, just go to taa.texas.gov/TCLAS. That's the easiest way to get to it, and you'll pop directly to this slide. We have made it very explicit that after school is at the top of this right now. So you actually see kind of the deadline for the application, the link to the actual application right at the top of that page. There's a little bit of content about after school. I'll zoom in. Thanks for the feedback. There's a little bit of content about after school here, but I want to go actually directly to some of the resources that are available for folks specific to after school in this application. So a few resources that I want to call out. One is the actual application. If you go there first, I think you might be pretty confused because there's a lot of information that's in there that, or a lot of information that requests that it more thoroughly explains in this overview document. So I'm going to click on this overview document actually and just walk through it. This presentation, this webinar was designed really pulling information from this overview document. So you'll see eligibility, you'll see the application process, you'll see the programmatic timeline that Gloria went over earlier, all the supports, and the available awards, followed by all the prioritization opportunity or the prioritization kind of rules, and then the assurances at the bottom. So this document is, this is the first thing that I would do if I'm thinking about submitting an application, is read through this document thoroughly, make sure that this is something that your district is still interested in, that's going to benefit your teachers and your students, and then consider the next steps in applying. Because it was a question earlier, I want to just pause here. The available supports for tutoring are based on the cost of tutors times the expected number, and I say tutors, this could be teacher stipends as well, other educators. The expected cost of tutor for half an academic year, you would insert the number of students, and this would be in the application, and that would calculate your potential award. Again, keep in mind, this is a different support than what's included for 11A personnel for high quality after school. So that's the overview document. Again, this has access to the application. There's your one-stop shop. It's a PDF. I heard some folks asking about, will some of the resources from the previous version of TCLAS, the previous TCLAS application, be available for TCLAS after school? The answer is these are the resources that we heard from folks would be most helpful here. There was a lot of great stuff that I think we were able to provide to folks through the first TCLAS. There were a lot of things that we learned. We heard from folks, hey, there was a ton of information in a few different places, and that was confusing. And so our attempt here has been to streamline the information that you're getting into this one overview document, and then have one application. And that's what you have in terms of what to explain for your awards. So that's the overview document. I'm going to pop back to the TCLAS website real quick, just show you some of the other opportunities to engage with our team. You have the overview document as well here. The TAA that announced this opportunity is posted on the website as well. You're at the overview webinar. For folks that are asking where the recording and slides are going to be, it's going to be right here. We're just going to replace this with a recording. So you'll be able to access this exactly at this point. Whenever you want, share it with folks as well if that's helpful for you. And then we've also heard from folks from our first TCLAS experience that, hey, it would be really nice just to engage with the team, ask some more questions, and just learn more as we make this decision. And so we're providing office hours. It's not this Friday, but it starts next Friday, and it'll be the following 2 Fridays after that, all at 2 p.m. Central Time. And you can just join using this link. There's no need to register. No need to join for the whole time. We'll operate it kind of as a open Zoom room, and then we'll have breakout rooms depending on the number of folks that are there. And our team will be there to answer questions that you have as you complete the application. So Brian, I'm gonna stop sharing, and I'm gonna send it back to your slides, and then I think go forward. I think the next slide that we have actually we'll just walk through the rest of the next steps, and then we'll go to questions. Yep. So again, those are your next steps. If you're saying you're interested here, you're in step number 1 right now. So you're doing your research and you're figuring out if you need to apply. Thanks for joining the overview webinar. If you do apply, it is that Qualtrics-based application that is linked on the site. I actually didn't even click into that. I'm going to go back, if you don't mind, Brian, just to give folks a sense of that application. For folks that did apply for the first round of TCLAS, you're familiar with this, but this there's a lot of folks here. There's a lot of information that we're going to collect, and the best way for us to do this is through a survey form. And so this is actually the application. It's saved actually from when I was playing around with it earlier, but it asks you a lot of questions specific to who are you, what are the supports that you want, what are the number of students that you have, number of campuses, things like that. So you'll actually go through that. It's a survey-based application. Some of your resources are still listed down here. You can say, hey, I'm an LEA, I'm a nonprofit, and you'll just walk through that application. Again, if you have questions on the specificities of this, join the office hours and we'd be happy to walk you through. So again, that is the Qualtrics-based application. That's step number 2 here when you're thinking about to apply. That is all the information that you're submitting to TEA. So for folks that are used to other types of grant programs where you have to build a narrative or you have to submit letters of recommendation and other documents, through this Qualtrics-based application, you are submitting all your information to TEA, and it goes into a big spreadsheet. And then we sort that spreadsheet according to the prioritization that we listed earlier. And the folks that, until the funds are gone, until the services are gone, the folks that meet that prioritization will be the ones that receive award. After you receive an award, we'll notify you of your award, and you'll have the opportunity to accept. And then after that happens, that's when you'll submit your official PDF grant application. I know this is 2 processes here, which isn't ideal, and I want to call that out. It has saved folks a lot of time, though, to run this as a kind of Qualtrics-based application, then just submit exactly what you need to our grants team. This step number 4 is meant to just release the funds to y'all through through the traditional TEA grant system. So that's what awarded applicants will be asked to do in their acceptance to the award phase for TCLAS. Before I move on, just one last thing that I want to call out is that there is approval of an authorized official from the district that is required, district or the nonprofit or ESC that is required for this. Because it's a Qualtrics-based application, folks that have the link can apply. And so what we need to ensure as a team that when we're making the awards, that essentially the superintendent or the head of curriculum and instruction at the district, whether that's a chief academic officer, executive director of curriculum instruction, superintendent in some cases, that person has said, yep, we're on board, we're going to do this. That's similar for nonprofits ESC, that an executive director would need to give that thumbs up. In the previous TCLAS process, we had a separate kind of email go out. The folks would list their authorized approver, an email would go out to that authorized approver, and then they would come back and sign it. We heard from a lot of folks that that was a difficult process and not the clearest process to follow. So we've eliminated that for the sake of TCLAS high quality after school. What you will do though in the application is say, yes, this official has approved, this is their name, and then you'll go ahead and submit your application. After we make the award prioritization and we ask y'all to accept the award, that's when your authorized official is going to have to actually sign the acceptance of the award. So it will happen. We're just doing it in a different order now that that it will streamline it a bit and hopefully save y'all some time and some questions. So with that, speaking of questions, I'm happy to use the next kind of 15 minutes or so to answer the questions that we see that are that we're able to answer. And again, we will be posting an FAQ in the coming weeks that will be that'll be posted on that tea.texas.gov/TCLAS. We have Julie, a really good question. Is there a blank application survey that you can download for planning purposes? Brian, I think that's probably something that we can make happen pretty easily.
Yeah,
I think
post pretty quickly.
For folks that are on the call, so it's to see the actual TCLAS, the Qualtrics application, you have to go through it. And Julie from down the Spring Branch called out, hey, it'd be really nice to actually see all the questions that are coming up. All those questions are listed in the guidance document, but we'll actually go ahead and just PDF that survey for you, just so that you can have it before you take the time to complete it. And I'm going to go through these and see, but my team, of course, if y'all see questions that we're able to answer, please do that as well. There's a question from Deanna about the application. Can I save it? Do I need to complete it all at once? This actually saves for you. So if you notice when I popped up the application, it said ESC4, Aldine ISD. I was just playing around with it to see the application, how it went. And it just saved that, and I didn't even mean to. So yes, the application will save on its own as soon as you click forward. So you'll always be able to come back to it. Also a really good point to mention, if you go all the way through and submit your application, and then it happens again, like you come back and you say, actually, I wanted to update that application, we are accepting the latest approved application that comes through.
Andrew, I see a lot of questions about the grade levels that can be served. Could you explain the difference between serving K through 12 and after school and the use of the HQIM materials?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the opportunity as a whole is meant for pre-K 12. You will see though, if you look into the prioritized high impact tutoring options, and Brian, I don't know if we can go back there, but there's actually a K-8 math, K-8 RLA option for those. And those are the ones that we're prioritizing. So yes, pre-K is eligible to apply. Yes, high school is eligible to apply, but it doesn't fall into that first prioritization bucket. It does fall into, for high school, if folks are looking to have a math supplement, they can apply. That'll be available through Mathia, and that's something that folks can do. And we don't currently have a pre-K after school program curriculum that we've been able to contract with or develop yet, and that's why we don't have pre-K as an option there, which is definitely not ideal and not what we want, but it's the case that we're finding ourselves in right now. There's a question about if we want to apply for all three options, we complete 3 separate applications. You are completing 1 application per applicant. So if I'm a district that's interested in this and I'm interested in 11A and 11B, my application is going to say, you're going to walk through it and say, yes, I'm interested in 11A. Yes, I'm interested in 11B. And then the next question will pop up and say, are you interested in 11C? And you say no, and then you click submit. So that's your application. If there's only 1 application for all of the application for all of the options.
There's a good question here asking about another separate deadline in Teal for October 29th. So that, keep in mind, this is TCLAS decision 11. This is a completely separate process than the original decisions 1 through 10. And so the October 29th deadline relates to decisions 1 through 10. And so all of the deadlines within this application are distinct from that. And so the deadline that you're worried about here is this November 12th by 4:59 p.m. submission of the actual application.
Brian, you mind popping back to the eligible applicant side? So there's a few clarifying questions about who's able to apply as the applicant. Can you pop back 2 more, I think? 4 more to the left or back or beginning.
To the very beginning.
Yeah, that one. No, eligible.
This one. There we go.
Yeah, thank you. So LEAs can apply as the lead applicant, or third parties can apply. So if you're looking to apply for a school, you would actually have to coordinate with your district or charter to submit your application. That was to answer a question, can a school apply? See a few other good questions about, like, show us the application. So again, right now, all the application information is in that guidance document, all the information that you'll be required to present. And then, so it's like LEA name, or it's nonprofit name, those types of things, number of students, number of campuses, et cetera. It's all listed in the guidance document, but we'll go ahead and post that PDF within the next 24 hours. Good question for the high impact tutoring program and after school number of students. So there's an example of, like, kind of the formula that we use to calculate the awards. The number of students in 11C is all the number of students participating in the program. So it's not like full students at the school or LEA, but students participating in the program. Very clarifying question. Good question on if we're a campus that serves all grade levels. If we're a 1 campus district or charter, could we apply for only certain grade levels? The answer is yes to that. I see a lot of questions about transportation and food costs. That is not an eligible cost or an eligible expense from this award. I do think our team can put together some resources around food services that we can provide to folks as well. Good question on can you set the TCLAS Qualtrics survey to provide a confirmation submission email?
Yeah, it should. So if you're not receiving that, then reach out to afterschool@ta.texas.gov.
Can you apply for some but not all campuses within the LEA? Absolutely. Also see some questions from folks that have 21st century programs as well, wondering about the overlap there. I would think about this as an opportunity to scale up those programs, either within the current program or across to get more scale within the district or whatever region that you're serving. So these can supplement those. Question about timeline for getting notification of the award. Christine, I know that you're working directly with our grants team to align on that. We are, so the application closes on November 12th. There's, I think, 2 dates. One is when you're going to get notification of that you're awarded, and then there's actually the NOGA date. Christine, I don't know if do you have more information on the NOGA date, or is that something that we need to post to the site?
I think what will happen is after the Qualtrics closes, we need some time to work with that data and then load it with grants. And so it'll be around December when we open, I believe it'll be December, correct me if I'm wrong, team, when we open the PDF application.
Yeah, so we'll get back to you on that.
Like
the
first in,
Qualtrics,
first out.
Yeah, that's great. So what the Qualtrics application also allows us to do is get you information to know if you're getting award faster or not. One thing that we didn't cover here that is in the guidance document is that pre-award costs are available for this opportunity. So I think these pre-award costs actually go back as far as we can allow y'all to go back to, which I think is like March of 2021. So 2 things there. One is you'll know if you're going to receive the award fairly quickly after you submit. I would say, I think our turnaround for the first TCLAS application was probably about 2.5 weeks, and this one's substantially smaller. So we'll do our best to go as quickly as we can. And then shortly after that, the actual PDF grant application process will happen. So we'll be able to notify you. The reason I said that, we'll be able to notify you before that kind of PDF grant application starts. A few good questions about I'm going to combine this into one big question. Who do the tutors need to be, and how much do we need to pay them? So we're calling it tutoring, but we're trying to stay away from saying this should just be tutors. If you're thinking about your district, like, you should make the decision on who's going to be best positioned to serve your students in this kind of tutoring model, or even the non-tutoring, just after school academic model. This could be tutors. This could also be paras. This could be teachers that are interested in a stipend to stay for longer to provide extra services for their students. And so this could really be leaving a little bit broad, so that because y'all make the decisions. We also know there's a lot of personnel constraints right now. There's a lot more folks that we need in our system. And so I think we need to just be flexible there for districts to make those decisions on who's going to be best positioned to serve these students. That being said, the requirements are still the same. The requirements are the same regardless of if it's a teacher or if it's not a certified teacher. In terms of, there's some questions about how much do we need to pay those folks. I think that's a district level decision. We've determined the award that you'll be awarded, and that it should go to stipends for the folks that are participating in this model. But actually what trickles down to folks, I think, is a district level decision. We have a few questions on the research behind some of the research back kind of key points, attributes that we put up there. We'll go ahead and add those to the website. I think there's a lot of good work that the Walls Foundation has done. Christine, you're the expert on this. I don't know if you have other studies that you just wanted to point out quickly, but we can get those up on the site pretty quickly.
No, we can put them up there. That's an easy thing to do. I see some questions also, Andrew, about, what kind of planning documents will we have? Will we be, how can people start determining which students to serve and that sort of thing? And that'll be forthcoming in our next phase of rolling things out.
Yeah, I think one thing I would say with that is like, this, you don't know, this is a very fast moving process. I would think about the planning process, the strategic planning process that we've mentioned, not as, hey, you're going to submit this plan. It's, hey, you're going to show us the things, right? So it's like, who's on your team that's leading this, right? Like, who are the community members that you're involving? What is the schedule that you're using, right? Like, what is the, who's actually going to do this in terms of staff, right? Like, these are things that a lot of folks build out as a part of their after school programs already. And definitely the folks that are doing this in a way that's really achieving student outcomes. So those are the types of things that we'll ask for as a part of the planning submission. A question, if you applied for decision 6, will the awarded amount on this award be smaller? So I'm going to broaden the question and say, if you were awarded for decision 6, the maximum you can get, so if you were awarded for decision 6, you can apply for all this. The maximum you would get, though, for saying I want to do a high impact tutoring model on after school is $200,000, whereas folks that weren't awarded decision 6, their maximum is $500,000. The rationale being you would have that extra $200,000 to essentially expand the tutoring program that you're already planning. With folks that didn't have that opportunity with high impact tutoring as part of decision 6 would have more funds to build out a full scale tutoring program. There's a question about if we apply for option, I'm sorry, yes, and I get confused on the numbers too. If we apply for 11C, option B, which is essentially the one where we list out, these are some of the approved products. The question is like, do we only have to use those products? Can we use the funding for additional programs as well? The funding that's a part of option B is for professional learning tied to those products and the actual products itself. So if you're interested in using that as part of your after school program, you could do it. It doesn't need to be the whole thing. So if you say, you know what, we have a need to build a high-level student conceptual understanding in math, ST math is a good option to do that. And so that's something that maybe you want to do for, 25 minutes a day. And so you could do that, and that could be kind of your math block. And then that would meet the requirement for option 11C, decision 11C option B. And then the other time within the program is up to you how you use it. Yeah. Question of, must an LEA choose certain campuses? Can this serve all schools? Yes, this can serve all schools, or an LEA can choose certain campuses. I think in terms of criteria of students, and the question also asked about what is the criteria for students at this point, this should serve. I mean, we have a pretty general assurance that after school programs must seek out and recruit and serve the students that are most in need. That isn't a black and white answer. What is more black and white is the HB 4545 requirements, which let me actually, we had an error in one of our slides earlier. HB 4545 requirements also expand to end of course exams for high school students. So just want to be clear that is those students are required to receive those same services listed in HB 4545. But those I think are the target students for this work, for high quality after school. And the last thing that I would say is that within the tiers, the prioritization tiers, there's a likelihood that we get down to essentially our last bucket of funds and then need to make decisions within a tier about who gets awarded and who doesn't. And then in that case, we look at the percent of students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds from the district. I just realized we are a minute over. There's a ton of great questions here, and we really appreciate folks joining today. We will go back through these questions and try to categorize them and combine them as much as we can and implement them into the FAQ document that we're going to post. Also keep in mind our upcoming office hours sessions that are not tomorrow, but are every other Friday up until the application closes. So thank you all so much for being here today. Know that you have a ton on your plate, it's a ton going on, and you're doing a ton of great work across the state of Texas. And so we just appreciate you spending time with us today. I'm excited to be able to offer this as an opportunity for folks that are interested. Reach out with any questions, and we'll see you soon.